Today we're going to be taking a look at a 2023 Toyota Corolla Hybrid XLE. Let's get started. 2023 is the first year that Toyota is offering the Corolla Hybrid in other trims besides the LE, so we have SE and XLE. If you missed it, I already made a video on the SE Hybrid, but today we're going to be taking a look at their top trim, the XLE Hybrid. Now, unlike the LE and SE trims, which are offered in both front-wheel and all-wheel drive, this XLE Hybrid is only offered in front-wheel drive. Under the hood, we have a 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine that makes 138 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque. The EPA rates this Corolla Hybrid at 50 average miles per gallon, which is 53 in the city and 46 on the highway. The Corolla Hybrid takes 11.3 gallons of gas, which should get you 565 miles per tank at 50 miles per gallon. For safety, the Corolla Hybrid has 10 total airbags and they use Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. 3.0 has the same features as 2.5 Plus, but they improve the monocular camera and millimeter wave radar so that they can detect things a little bit further away. The Corolla Hybrid XLE starts at $26,600 before options and destination fee. The one that we're taking a look at today is $27,984. In this overview, we're going to go over the exterior and then we're going to jump inside and talk about some of the features. As usual, we're going to start in the front of the car, and let's start by talking about this paint color. So this is Toyota's blueprint color, which is a very metallic, shiny dark blue. In very direct lighting, it can appear almost purple, but when the sun sets and it gets dark, it can almost be mistaken for a black color. Here in the front, we have these LED headlights with LED daytime running lights built in, and there are no fog lights on this model. Moving over to the center of the front, we have that blue Toyota emblem because this is a Toyota Hybrid, and just down below that emblem, we have this large black open grille. There's a tow hook cover which is built into the driver's side of the front grille, and at the bottom of the front grille, there's this plastic metallic silver piece for some more styling. At the top of the windshield, you can see the camera that's mounted behind the rearview mirror that helps with the Toyota Safety Sense features. The radar is going to be built in behind the Toyota emblem. Moving on to wheels and tires, the XLE gets these standard 16-inch alloy wheels, and the tire is a Yokohama Avid GT. The tire size is 205/55 R16. Continuing on over to the side, we have this color-matched side mirror here that does have a turn signal indicator built into it, and the blind spot monitor is going to be standard on the XLE. The windows have a lot of chrome going around them, and between the front and rear windows, you get this black plastic. The front driver and passenger side also gets keyless entry, so you can tap on these lines right here to lock the Corolla Hybrid, and as long as the key is nearby and you place your hand behind the door handle, it'll unlock. The key looks like this. You have a lock button, unlock button, hold down for the trunk, and an alarm with a Toyota emblem at the bottom, and the back is just going to have nothing on it. At the very bottom on the side of the vehicle, you can notice a small little side skirt poking out. On the roof of the XLE, you'll notice that there is a sunroof, which is standard on all of the XLE models, and then moving a little bit further back, you do get a color-matched shark fin antenna. Behind the driver's side rear door is the fuel door, which has to be opened from the interior, but like I mentioned earlier, it takes 11.3 gallons of gas, and it's just regular 87 octane. Moving on to the rear of the Corolla Hybrid now, we have these LED taillights in the back here, and these taillights at first glance do look like they connect together. They do have that black plastic piece right here that sort of bridges the two taillights together. This black plastic piece in the center doesn't actually line up. These are two separated taillights, and that black plastic piece is just there for styling. Just above that, we do have another blue Toyota emblem because, again, this is a hybrid. And moving down below, you can see the reverse camera, and we have some badges on the left side and right side. The right side says XLE Hybrid, and the left side just says Corolla. Moving further down to the bumper, we have these red reflectors on each side, and the bumper piece is just this black piece of plastic, which does have another smaller tow hook cover, as well as a single little exhaust tip hanging out from the passenger side. Next up, we're going to take a look at the trunk, which there are three ways to get into. The first way is going to be to pull on a little release by the driver's seat. The second of which is going to be to use the key. Remember, we have that button right here on the key where we can hold down and we can open up that trunk. And the third way is going to be to go directly underneath this blue Toyota emblem and push on the little button. Taking a look at the trunk space now, we have 13.1 cubic feet of space back here, and inside this white box is going to be the floor mats that go into the interior. Back here we also have a rear cargo mat that does say Corolla on it, and underneath the floorboard of this trunk you do have space to put a spare tire if you do want to add one, but instead you do get this emergency tire puncture repair kit. Next up, we're going to jump inside and talk about some of the interior features on this Corolla Hybrid, but as usual, we're going to start with the door panel. The door panel is made up of some soft touch plastic, hard touch plastic, and also some of this Softex leather material. This Softex also does have some white stitching running along it, and there is this gloss black handle right here, which you can use to open and close the door. There are spaces for some water bottles, as well as we have one of our 6 interior speakers. If you do want 9 JBL speakers instead of the 6 Toyota speakers, that is a factory option, which is available on this XLE. The Corolla Hybrid also has auto up-down windows on all 4 corners, a window lock button, lock and unlock for the entire car, as well as our mirror controls over here. And the door handle has some silver on it. Next, let's take a look at the interior seats. If you do go for an XLE model, you're going to get these standard Softex seats, which is Toyota's fake leather. It's very plush, and this right here is their black Softex, which does have this white stitching going around and across it. The driver's seat is power operated, but it does not have lumbar support, and the passenger seat is going to be all manual controls. And before we fully get in, let's take a look at some of the buttons that we have over here by the steering wheel. So first up, we do have a brightness control for the center display, an automatic high beams button, release for the fuel door, release to adjust the steering wheel position over here, and at the very bottom you do have the release for the hood. On the floor here by the driver's seat, you also have a release for the trunk. Sitting inside of the Corolla Hybrid XLE now, let's start by taking a look at this steering wheel, which is wrapped in black leather and also has black stitching going around it. We also have this airbag and horn right here, which is in this sort of circular shape, and we have plenty of buttons on the steering wheel. On the left side over here, we have these arrows, which are going to help us control the 7-inch multi-information display, which we'll take a look at in a second. At the bottom row, we have audio and multimedia controls, and on the right side, we have some of our Toyota Safety Sense buttons for things like our radar cruise control and lane depart assisting. Behind the steering wheel, you can see we do have automatic headlights, and we do have our wiper controls on the right. Behind the steering wheel, we also have our push start button, so let's go ahead and turn on this Corolla Hybrid and see what it looks like. And just like that, the Corolla Hybrid is turned on and it's ready to be driven. In this case, the engine didn't start because it didn't need to be started, but you can see because we have this little green box that does say ready, we can go ahead and put the car into reverse or drive and start moving. This gauge cluster has this 7-inch multi-information display over here, which can be configured around using the buttons on the steering wheel over here, so you can play around with it and find all sorts of settings. One of my favorite things about this 7-inch multi-information display is that we can switch the meter style around. So right now we're in sporty, but we can switch it around to smart, or we can go to casual. Another thing that I think is really cool is that you can switch the dial type. So around the speedometer, we have this wheel which shows us information about the hybrid system. If you don't want to see that, you can switch it over to the tachometer, or if you don't want that either, you can just switch it off entirely and only be looking at the speed. There's also various other information on this gauge. For example, we have the amount of fuel that we have on the right side, the engine temperature on the left side, and the corners of the 7-inch display also have some information. The top right has the time, the bottom right has distance to empty, the bottom left has the odometer, and the top left has the temperature outside. Next up, let's take a look at this 8-inch infotainment screen, which does have Toyota's new audio and multimedia software. This now has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly, so you don't have to plug in by USB anymore to use those two features. If you don't want to use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can still just use regular old school Bluetooth. Over here we have some shortcut buttons, so we have things like navigation, music, phone calls, trip information, and our settings. Just below the screen, we have 2 air vents and a button to turn on the emergency lights. Moving down below that, we have a single zone climate control, so we can only set one temperature for the entire cabin, but it does have an auto button on it. Moving down from the HVAC controls, we have a little storage area right here where most people will put their phones. If you do get the factory option that gives you the JBL speakers, you're also going to have a wireless phone charger over here. And if you do get an XLE hybrid, you'll have standard heated seats for both the driver and the passenger side. Moving along, we have our shifter, which does have park, reverse, neutral, drive, and brake. This is an eCVT transmission. And behind over here, we also have these 3 buttons. One of them will switch your drive modes between sport, normal, and eco. We have a button to turn off traction control and a button to enter EV mode, which will only work in settings like a parking lot, but it'll drive the car entirely off of the hybrid battery, as long as the gas pedal isn't being pressed down too far and you have enough charge in the hybrid battery. Further along, we have 2 cup holders over here, as well as a brake hold button and an electronic parking brake. Behind the cup holders, we have our center console, which is very tiny, but it has a USB Type-C port and a 12-volt power outlet inside. Next up, we're going to jump into the passenger seat, and the only difference over here is that we have less window and mirror controls. Moving over to the passenger seat, you can see that it's all manual adjustments. We have no power adjustments for the passenger side. Sitting in the passenger seat now, we have this soft touch plastic piece right here directly in front of the passenger, and it does have this line that sort of goes across this plastic piece, and it does also have some black stitching on it. Moving just down below, we have a glove box over here, which has all of the paperwork for this car. And right beside the glove box, you can see the second USB-C port for this interior. Moving up, we have our rear view mirror over here, which is not auto dimming, so you are going to have to manually dim it when it comes nighttime. And then moving up from there, we have some light controls over here, an emergency SOS button behind this little encasing, and we also have our sunroof controls. This right here is an idea of how big the sunroof is. It's going to cover the front driver and passenger side, and it's standard on all of the XLE hybrid models. Next up, we have our visors, which can be swiveled around just like this, and then they also have a little extended portion right here if you need that extra coverage. There is also a mirror and a light built into the visor. Next up, we're going to jump into the back seats. Starting with the door panel, it's the same material that we see in the front, but with a lot less storage space. So we have a very small little pocket right here where you can place some small objects, and we have a tiny little area over here at the very bottom where you can maybe place one water bottle. Sitting in the back seats now, you'll notice that depending on where the driver and passenger seat are positioned, you can either have a lot or a little space back here. Behind the driver and passenger seat, there's going to be no pockets for storage, but you do get two USB Type-C ports in the back seats here. There's going to be no air vents in the center, but you do have air tunnels underneath the driver and passenger seat that allow for air to pass through to the back. There are child seat latch points on the outboard seats, and if you're not using the center seat, you can fold this area down for an armrest or two extra cup holders. The back seats can also be folded down by pushing over by the headrests and then sliding them forward. That's going to do it for this week's overview of the 2023 Corolla Hybrid XLE. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, so if you're not subscribed yet, please hit that button, and we'll see you all next week.